Laughter swirls around me, loud and echoing, but I can barely hear it over the sound of the pounding in my chest. My heart is racing, a wild drum slamming against my ribs with a sound so loud I wonder if anyone else can actually hear it. My face is burning, but my hands are ice cold. My fingers are tingling as if they don't even belong to me anymore. The ground beneath me is unsteady. Feels like the floor is tilting, but also like the whole world is threatening to tip me over. I scan the room for an escape. In that new place, I hadn't done my due diligence about where the exits are, which just added to my panic. Just breathe, I tell myself. But I can't. My throat feels like it's closing up, like I might choke on absolutely nothing at all. I need to get out of here. I need to escape. So I make my way outside. How many of you have ever experienced something similar before? Maybe during a meeting, before a big presentation, going on a first date, or for seemingly no reason at all, and thought, what is happening to me? If that sounds familiar, I want you to raise your hand and look around you. You are not alone. I didn't know I was having a panic attack when I first started to get them. I would judge myself, feel ashamed, and think that there was something broken inside of me. This would make me even more frustrated and angry when I couldn't stop them from happening. I was fighting against my body instead of trying to understand it. So, our nervous systems have a built in survival mechanism called the fight or flight response, which I'm sure a lot of you here are familiar with. But the thing is, our brains cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat. So our body responds the same way now as it did when a wild animal was chasing us, but to stressors like giving a TED talk, taking an important test, watching the news, or even scrolling on social media. Our body responds as if our survival is on the line. And to me, that was happening in the form of panic attacks. And let me tell you, I was terrified of them. Still kind of am. This fear of having another panic attack stopped me from being able to leave the house for 4 years. This equates to 48 months, 208 weeks, 1,461 days. I was completely housebound. I had developed an anxiety disorder called agoraphobia with panic disorder. Essentially, the fear of leaving the house with the intense phobia of experiencing another panic attack, thinking that maybe this time it's actually going to kill me. I want you to imagine that you have a severe phobia of snakes, and that every time you would leave the house, you would be surrounded with snakes everywhere you went. I think that you would also want to stay in your safe space. Ironically, my lockdown ended when yours began in May of 2020. You all will remember May 2020 as the peak of COVID, when everybody was forced to experience what I had been experiencing all this time at home. But to me, it felt like the perfect time to venture out and face my fears. It felt like the world was on pause and that I could catch up with everyone else. It was quiet and it was peaceful. But I'm not here today to relive the past because if I'm quite honest with you, I'm kind of feeling that fight or flight system activating right now. But I am here today to share two powerful lessons that I learned from working with my body. Lessons that not only transformed my own life, but became the foundation of how I help others grow and break through their fear based barriers. So, the first lesson is that mood follows action. How many of us have said, I'll go to the gym when I feel ready or when I've slept better? Or I'll start that business when I feel like I have more experience? Or I'll speak up at that meeting when I feel like I have more confidence. But has that time ever come? Starting small, starting scared, starting somewhere is still starting. I thought I had to get my entire life figured out before I took my first steps. I thought I had to see the entire ladder, but in reality, all I needed to see were the first couple of steps. The key is I was able to take those steps not by waiting for motivation to just fall on my lap, but by starting and acting despite the fear, despite not feeling ready. If you wait for motivation to just happen, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going to be waiting a really long time. Motivation happens when you start to act. In order to live the life that I wanted, free from the control that fear had on me, I had to expose myself to the exact things that had me trapped in my house for so long. So I used a tool taught through cognitive behavioral therapy called exposure therapy. I created a list from 1 to 10. 1 being things that I could do with no to minimal anxiety, and 10 being things that I thought were impossible to do at the moment. When I was first starting out, my 2 out of 10 was to step out my front door, go into the elevator, press 9, go down 1 floor, and then come back up. That was my first step. So I did that until that felt too easy to even be on the list. So I moved on to the next thing on my list. 6 months later, when I was fully able to be outside the apartment building, my next challenge was to take a walk in Mashtots Park across the building. I remember the first time that I walked into the park and I approached a grassy area and I looked up and I saw a tree. And I looked at this tree and I thought, wow, it looks surreal. Because for so long, I had been seeing this exact tree only from the 10th floor, from the top of the building. It was a completely different perspective. I had almost forgotten what a tree looks like up close. I want you all to remember when you first started going out after protecting yourself so long from COVID. Remember how hard it was to be around strangers? Or how scary it was to touch anything, fearing that it might be infected with COVID? Now imagine having to live with that fear every day. 10 years ago, I myself was a student here, walking in these very halls. At the time, my anxiety got the best of me and I would have panic attacks in these very halls. And yet here I am today, facing my 6 out of 10 on this stage in these very halls. Today, my 10 out of 10 is to travel alone to a different country. But to a lot of you, that's a vacation. It's something that you actually look forward to and enjoy doing. So that's to say, don't compare your list with that of someone else's. Don't compare your 10 out of 10. Just create a list and start tackling it one by one and watch how your mood will follow. The second lesson is that you have to learn to be comfortable with discomfort. I know that sentence sounds like an oxymoron, like it's contradicting itself, but let me tell you, the minute you truly realize that discomfort is not a sign for you to stop, but a sign that you are growing, you will see your development with an entirely new lens. This mindset shift helped me when I was facing tremendous amounts of discomfort at the beginning of my exposure therapy. When I was starting out, as soon as I would feel short of breath or that rush of panic coming in, I would turn back and run back home as fast as humanly possible. I would avoid feeling discomfort. And what that did, it ultimately just fed my anxious mind. What I learned was that I had to stay in the discomfort long enough to show my brain that I am safe. I had to actually feel the panic attack, feel that discomfort in order to move through it. Slowly but surely, my resistance and my tolerance to discomfort increased, and yours can as well. You now all might be thinking, this sounds a lot like you just gotta suck it up and do it. And ultimately, it can be. But it's all about how you frame it. Nelson Mandela once said that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. So fear doesn't have to go away, but you can act in spite of it. I now want you to think of something that you've been avoiding because of fear. Or, in other words, what is your 5 out of 10? Got it? Now, I want you to ask yourself, what is one thing that I can do today? Not tomorrow, not when I feel ready, but today. Because readiness is a myth. You don't have to be ready, you just need to start. So go and take that first step, feel the fear, and do it anyway. Do it scared. Thank you.